Hi everyone, the Miracle and possibly the Sleeper here, with Rhyme Signatures, the nerdiest music review this side of having an out-of-body murder experience induced by a softly spoken mental health worker. And today, we're going to be doing a review of the classic Dream Theater album, Metropolis Part 2, Scenes from a Memory. It's classics time! Oop, oop, the joy, the fun, the rapture. Yeah, I kind of wanted to get some of my thoughts out on albums that have shaped me not only musically, but kind of from a personal and a little bit of a spiritual level. Not that I'm a very spiritual person, but you know. Anyway, yeah, these classic albums I'm going to be looking at over the coming months, years, decades, are going to be ones that are much more than just a sequence of songs to me. These are albums that are part of my DNA, and as inseparable from me as my gigantic nose, ridiculous eyebrows, and god-awful sense of humour. The point of these videos isn't really to review the album in a traditional sense, but more to analyse just how this album has made me feel over the years, what it means to me, and how it helps to shape what I consider to be my musical identity. And I figured, hey, there's no better album that fits this criteria than Dream Theater's 1999 staggeringly brilliant concept album, Metropolis Part 2, Scenes from a Memory. Okay, chances are if you're listening to my reviews and stuff like that, and you're into the prog sphere, I don't really think I need to introduce Dream Theater at this point, and I could probably bore you endlessly about how they were originally going to be called Majesty, or that they had two vocalists before James LaBrie joined the band, or the long-running joke that John Mayung is actually mute and the song The Silent Man is about him, or how James LaBrie destroyed his vocal cords due to food poisoning-induced vomiting whilst on tour, etc, 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 blah 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 blah. But I won't, you know. But the point that I will make is that Dream Theater is my original connection to progressive rock and metal. This band is the fulcrum on which my entire musical brain owes its swing to. I mean, okay, look, yeah, there are lots and lots of bands out there that I would definitely now say I prefer to Dream Theater. Cough, Aiken, cough! Sorry, terrible itch in my... yeah. But for me, okay, these guys were the spark that lit the fire. Okay, they were the seed from which the entire orchard grew from, and the big freaking musical bang to my universe. Okay, I've always enjoyed music, right? But I never really took it seriously until I got into Dream Theater. Like one fateful day in 2004, I think it was, I was recommended by some forum user of a bygone website to listen to A Change of Seasons. And it is no exaggeration to say that my life kind of really did change then. My hobbies and interests, such as they were, went on pause in favour of spending obscene amounts of money on audio equipment and CDs, something I had only really done sporadically before this. And I took on as many recommendations as I could. You know, my musical taste blossomed, and I began to appreciate this as more than just something to dance and thrash around to. I saw it as art. Something to appreciate and the nuance and detail of, and to treat as the main attraction rather than just, you know, something you have on in the background whilst you do other things. My appetite for Dream Theater content grew insatiable, and obviously I decided to start from the beginning, and I made my way up to 2005's Octavarium before I had to sit and wait for new material, because, you know, this was a long time ago. But that was fine, you know, I was fine, because everything at that point that was out right then was new material to me, so, you know, I was happy to digest what I could get. I smiled through When Dream and Day Unite, and grinned in wonder at images and words in Awake, nodding in appreciation of Falling into Infinity, yes, really, headbanging my way through 6 Degrees and Train of Thought, and sitting in reverent contemplation of Octavarium. But of all this initial run, it was Scenes from a Memory that laid me out flat, and I have never recovered from what that first listen did to me. God, you know, I remember it really, really vividly. You know, I just graduated from Cardiff University, needed a place to live, you know, didn't have a lot of money, so I had to stay at my nan's house for a few months whilst I found a place of my own. Now, there wasn't really much to do here, but there was a pretty banging stereo in the spare bedroom. So I made friends with music in my downtime between house hunting. And it was scenes from a memory that really got me through these times. They weren't easy, but, I'm here. So how do you even begin to describe this record? My God, that's a hell of a question. It's probably the most straightforward, narratively driven album Dream Theater have ever made, if you don't count the astonishing. I try not to count the astonishing wherever I can. Anyway, I became absolutely hooked on deciphering every nuance of the story of Scenes from a Memory, poring over the lyrics booklet, and appreciating the album as divided into scenes and acts, much like a play, and exploring how the story takes place across several periods in history, all while uncovering the mystery of what the final needle scratch really meant. Ooh. I won't go into too much detail, as chances are you already know the story, or at least have your own interpretation of it. But my understanding is that our lead character Nicholas is having dreams of a young woman, Victoria, who was murdered in the past. Ugh, dreadful. And visits a hypnotherapist to try and piece together what it all means, and why exactly is he having these dreams? Honestly, it's pretty straightforward on face value at the very least, and it's easy enough to enjoy this story on a basic level. But for me, it was deep diving into it that really made this record come alive to me. When you start to appreciate all the tiny hidden details that you'll only really notice on your 10th or 12th listen, or in my case, the 50th probably by this point. The instrumentation on this record is second to none though, and for me really balances out Dream Theater's supreme technical skill that they're known for, with some stellar songwriting and genuine love for the structure and form that the album adheres to. This is long before the band kind of devolved into the controversy time, tedious guitar and keyboard wankery template that they've been plodding along with since their self-titled record back in 2013. Jordan Rudess had just joined the band, kind of fresh from his tryouts in Liquid Tension Experiment, and he had long, glorious hair, woo, which is really, really weird when you watch videos of him from this era of the band, considering that he's been sporting his current signature look of the baldy, beardy man for quite some time. Maybe I stole his look, I don't know. But it was, he was fresh. It was exciting to hear what he would bring to the band. I mean, no shot, I will always stand Kevin Moore. Like, my heart belongs to him forever. But Jordan brought this crazy energy and style to the record without ever feeling like he was overly showboating for spotlight all the time. His complex and intricate solos, fascinating fills, and sheer skill behind the ivories really felt like a step up from everything that had come before it. I mean, only from a purely technical perspective at least. And you can really tell on this record that his presence is giving the band a real fiery boost of positivity compared to how they sounded on Falling Into Infinity. The superstar of this record, though, for me at least, is John Petrucci, and as it so often is, containing some of his all-time finest work as far as I'm concerned, like the solos on Fatal Tragedy, Spirit Carries On, Dance of Eternity, just pure magic. Pure magic. I mean, not to mention his brilliant acoustic work on softer tracks like Through Her Eyes. John really does pull out all the stops here, with not only superb proficiency in his axe work, but what would sadly become uncharacteristic restraint, allowing emotion and melody to work as the chief enforcers of his sound on this album, something that would become less and less the case as the band's career progressed. And then you've got the stalwart backers of John Myung and Mike Portnoy, ever the solid backbone for the band, both displaying a dazzling level of complexity and groove across the entire album. But with tracks like Home, Beyond This Life, and the oft-mentioned Dance of Eternity really giving them the opportunity to show the world at the time that they were pretty much unquestionably the best in their respective fields across almost all genres of metal. The two were a delight to listen to at every moment on the record, and the camaraderie and positive relationship between everyone in the band is so obvious and clear. Everything is so organic and flows so beautifully. It almost feels like the band is sharing the same mind between each other with how elegant and faultless it all sounds. And then we come to easily the most hotly debated member of the band, Mr. Kevin James Labrie himself. Now, okay, I get it. I know he's a sticking point for a lot of people with Dream Theater, and I know a lot of people really don't like him, and I can understand why he would rub people the wrong way. especially later on in the band's career, as his voice has certainly not aged with as much grace or dignity as some other similarly elderly, well, I don't want to say elderly, but similar veteran vocalists now like Bruce Dickinson or Rob Halford. But I've always appreciated the unique sound and style that he brings to the band. And in a lot of ways, I would describe him as the most irreplaceable member of Dream Theater. So often you find a band's true sound is defined by their vocalist, and in some ways, they just aren't considered the same band, for better or worse, once they've left. I mean, let's take a couple of examples, like Peter Gabriel, Genesis, Bon Scott from AC/DC, Ozzy Osbourne, Black Sabbath. I mean, all incredibly prominent voices and styles, and all easily one of the most defining sounds of the band. And their absence all represented a huge shift in the band's feel once they'd gone. The same would be true for James LaBrie. Like him or lump him, his voice is Dream Theater. His style and delivery is Dream Theater. And he has not sounded more defining of the band's sound than he does on Scenes from a Memory. I love James on this record, okay? And even though this is a post-food poisoning record, and he just isn't hitting that absurd range that he did on things like Images and Words and Awake, he honestly still sounds pretty brilliant here. From these soft and mellow crooning on interstitial tracks like Through My Words and One Last Time, to the huge, sweeping melodramatic songs like Home or Finally Free, LaBrie soars so high on this album, and his vocals are absolutely one of my favourite things here. He's charismatic and confident sounding, telling a fascinating campfire story, and he really leans into the camp of that fire. His ability to unabashedly own the hamminess and cheese that comes from this kind of record, I feel it really sets him aside from other vocalists of similar concept albums of the era. So, what else can I say about Metropolis Part 2, Scenes from a Memory? This is, without a doubt, the biggest classic for me in terms of progressive metal. You can argue until the cows come home about what the best Dream Theater album is, and technically I think I would ever so slightly rank Awake above this, but that's a different video entirely. But none of them really opened up the doors to me with this kind of music quite like Scenes from a Memory did. This is a pivotal moment in my musical DNA, the likes of which has never been fully replicated, and I sincerely doubt it ever will be. It's a complex, layered, beautiful and heartfelt experience, delving deep into the acceptance of loss, grief, identity, and how to move on. It's musically complex and melodic in equal measure, featuring some of the most blistering examples of musical technicality in the genre, before segueing into the most elegant beauty the band has ever recorded. I cannot state enough just how much this album means to me from a personal level, and how often it has pulled me out of the mire in the nearly 20 years I've been listening to it. And for that reason alone, I felt it only natural for this to be my first classic review. And, if for whatever reason you haven't listened to this one yet, I would urge you to set aside 77 minutes of your life, find a quiet room, get a good set of headphones, and just bask in what could easily be the best progressive metal album ever written. I mean, despite this being a classics review, this is still just my opinion. You might hate this record, and that's fine, but I'd be keen to know what you thought of this one in the comments down below. You know, if you hated it, I'd love to know why. If you've anything else you've listened to that you think I should check out this year, that's fine, but what about classics? What are your classics? You know, what really impacted your life? Maybe it impacted mine as well. Let's find out. If you like this video, please do share it with anyone who you think might enjoy it. And of course, please do consider subscribing for some more content. Until next time, guys, keep your rhyme signatures odd.